Yes, guys, welcome to another episode of Teams Like Brighton, and we have to go straight to it and talk about the Albion losing to Brentford away. It hurt, didn't it, Richie? It hurt. What were your takings on the match?
It did. I think it was just it hasn't been like this for a while, but Brighton dominated the game but had nothing to show for it. 72% possession, 21 shots to Brentford 7, and yet they lose 2-0. It was just one of those days where it just wasn't going in. Also David Raya, the Brentford keeper, was in crazy good form.
He had the Midas touch, didn't he?
Well, but also
he was a man possessed.
Yeah, but also I mean, he did obviously do very well, but there were definitely, you could say that, Welbeck, Solly March, others, whatever, they really should have scored. I mean, I think at some point, and this is a conversation from maybe further down the road, but Welbeck has played very well this season. But at what point do you go, you just need to score? It's, 0 goals. You just need to score. You can, all your great selfless build-up play and all that jazz, but at some point you need to stick the ball in the back of the net. So, yes, I think the profligacy issues, reared their ugly heads. It was just a disappointing night. Hopefully they can get back to winning ways against Forest on Tuesday. But it was a bit of a bad blast from the past, sadly. What about you?
I'm not liking it because all I was thinking is the XG as well. We won on XG at least, and it's just like, oh god, it's going back to those dark days. I don't want to go down that route again, really. But it's early days yet. But we got the problem is it's so easy to think back to those moments, those frustrating moments under Potter, and then just immediately vent that all on deserving. That I think that's unfair for us to go down. But it's so easy for us as football fans to just let the emotion get the better of us. It is really, really frustrating that we just played so well. We played them off the park and it just didn't work out. But De Zerbi he was encouraged. I was quite happy the fact he didn't just go and say, yeah, it wasn't our night, but we'll take the positives. I like the fact that he was a bit more analytical with everything. But the other thing I really liked and I was a big fan of was the way he stood up for his players as well. Just thinking of that, that Thomas Frank situation. He wasn't having any of it, and I really like that. And I like the fact that he was very cutthroat about it. He goes, no, I don't like it when other coaches interfere with my players. I wouldn't do that to their players, so I expect that same respect. Brilliant. I love that. I love that about him. It's not like as if he's kind of like high and mighty. He's like, no, I have a belief, and please respect that. Don't interfere with my players. And I really
a man of principle.
Yeah, it's principles. It's principles, and I like that. I've got no issue with that at all. So yes, I'm liking the passion that I'm seeing from him on the touchline as well. I think he's definitely someone who's very much a hands-on kind of manager. He's very different. He's very similar in terms of style of play under Potter, with Potter, but in terms of sort of like touchline mannerisms, complete polar opposites. Absolutely, and I'm here for it. I'm absolutely here for it. So so I'm going to say it. We'll take the positives out of Brentford and we'll move on. We'll move on.
Couple of things I want to add just on that. So first off, the Brighton away fans were fantastic. Singing Enoch Mwepu's name for 12 minutes plus at the start of the game was just brilliant. Just to keep on singing non-stop throughout, all the kind of ups and downs of those opening, minutes when there were chances. And, it's so often the case where the fans will start, all guns blazing, and then something will happen and they kind of peter out. But it's just, the Zambian flags were waving, lovely tributes before the game, have the nice little shirt saying, kind of we're here for you from his Zambian town to now, we're behind you. And then on the big screen, Brentford put, we are behind you as well, Enoch Mwepu. it was just a really, really classy, touching, way to begin the contest, and then just to. But yeah, and almost throughout, Albion's fans were fantastic. They, I think they're definitely underrated, probably amongst Premier League fan bases when, especially comes to away fans. They really do make their voices heard, and but yeah, one thing that I think, on a less positive note, I think it was I was disappointed to see that the flying winger Kaoru Mitoma, even though he carried on to the end of the game, he picked up a knock during the game when he was brought on in the second half. But as I was in the mix zone waiting for players to come, and obviously not that many wanted to chat, obviously after losing the game, but he walked out with an ankle brace and on crutches, which I was like, oh God, that's never a good sign. And I spoke to a couple of Japanese journalists who I know, and they said that they were asked not to interview him, which was, sounded a bit ominous. So that's a big shame, because he really is, I think, Brighton's go-to super sub, just in terms of giving you something different off the bench, running at tiring defenders, trickery, elusiveness, that sort of thing. So, and we'll go to this a little bit later, but he is out for the Nottingham Forest game and maybe even Man City at the weekend. So that's not a great sign. So yeah, swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, it's not the best sign that we've seen. For the time being, I mean, Matoma's been fantastic. I really am enjoying what I'm seeing from him. Yeah, they've been short and sweet spells, but what he offers is a completely different approach on that wing, and it really seemed like he was pushing for a start, and Forest could have been a perfect game for that. Or maybe the De Zerbi could have gone for we've got nothing to lose here against Man City, go for it, especially now when they're going to be fuming after losing to Liverpool at Anfield at the weekend. But that's just football, isn't it? We just got to move on. Hopefully it's not that bad. Have you were at the press conference, Richie? Did De Zerbi say anything about Matoma's injuries?
So he didn't really say that much. So, for example, just when asked about the team news, he just said Levi Colwill and Jean-Paul Van Heck have some problems. So it didn't really give much away. And then he was asked specifically about Mitoma, and he said Mitoma is out for this game for sure, and maybe for Manchester, it's his ankle. So there's not. He seems like he's keep his cards maybe close to his chest. I hope it's fine. Obviously, just for his sake, he's hoping to play in the World Cup with Japan in about a month's time. So I really hope that he is able to have that, fantastic honor to play for his country in the biggest football tournament in the world. But yes, so hard to say. Maybe we'll find out a bit more after the game, or maybe in the pre-Man City one. But not great news, sadly.
And he carried Japan as well at times during the qualification process. He's one of those players on the international stage that deserves to be at the World Cup tournament just from his performances that he's had for his country. So hopefully it isn't that bad. It's not that devastating. So we'll wait and see. I don't know if that was me getting that notification, but we'll move on quickly. There, Nottingham Forest are under their lights at the Amex. It's bound to be a cracking game, I think. And just going back to what you said.
Do you think it'll be a cracking game?
I think it will.
Yeah?
I think it'll be a cracking game. I think De Zerbi's probably thinking there on paper, go, right, this is where we go. Like we've got to make the Amex a fortress. I think if De Zerbi looked at Potter's record at home, he would have highlighted that and go, I've got to improve on this. And if he looks at it, and he's a football man, he knows his knowledge, and he's done extensive research. And I think he needs to send a message out to the fans and be like, I hear you. I want this to happen. I want the Amex to be a fortress. It's just there's never really been like a solid spell long term at the Amex since the Amex has happened where it's been a bit of a fortress. I think the only time that's actually happened is under Houghton in the Championship. Premier League is a bit different, but we're now at that stage now where we want to push on. We've got to make sure that, you know, a game at home is going to be one where the visitors are fighting for points, not us fighting for a draw or anything like that. We've got to be at that stage now. And I think De Zerbi will do that. And so I think that with that combined with Steve Cooper's approach to the game, I think we could be in for a decent 90 minutes. I've probably jinxed it all just by me saying this, and it could be the dullest 0-0 draw ever. But I mean, on the plus side, we may have a lullaby. On the other, we could have a fantastic game of football, and I really do think that. And on the other side as well, I'm really looking forward to it. We have touched on this is the tribute that we'll have at the Amex for Enoch and Wepu. I've got my Zambian flag ready. I'm really looking forward to seeing how many are at the Amex. It'll be interesting to see, instead of like the sea of blue across the ground, it'll be green with a touch of the eagle on the flag as well. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope he's there as well. I hope he gets given that halftime or pre-match send off that he deserves, because it's so unfair what that it's happened to him. It's the right decision, and you know, I'm just repeating what we said in the last episode, but I really hope that he does get that moment so that we could just show our appreciation for him, and hope him know that, you know, we're with you for the next step in his career, and give him that push. On the side note as well, I read on the Mirror that Fabrice Muamba has offered his help as well, which is fantastic. And I hope Mwepu jumps on that opportunity as well. He needs a strong support system behind him, and someone like Fabrice Muamba, someone in football that can really sympathise with the situation that he's in, with what happened to him back when I believe it was at Bolton, with what happened at White Hart Lane. It's something that Mwepu should really take on. But that's all the things off the pitch. But Richie, what are your thoughts going ahead to Forest's game?
Well, yeah, so I think what I quite liked from today's press conference is that on some things, like I said, he's maybe a bit more, De Zerbi's a bit more guarded, like kind of the injuries. But in terms of like saying who is going to play, he basically said, tomorrow, Adam Lallana starts the game. So I give you one piece of the news, which I like, you know, just tell it like it is. No kind of going, you know, we're considering him for selection, blah, 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 you know, just going, he's in the team. So it was an interesting call because Lallana did start the season very well. He was fantastic against Manchester United as part of that great team performance. He was pretty good against West Ham, but then I think that was the game where he picked up I think it was a calf injury. And he's obviously been brought in every now and again. I asked De Zerbi last week about what it's been like for Lallana, because he's gone from being a senior player in the squad to briefly a coach during Brighton's search for a new manager following the exit of Graham Potter, and then back to a player. So it's interesting dynamic and quite a rare one. Incidentally, De Zerbi thinks Lallana can be a very good head coach in the future, which I think is not a huge surprise to, I think, some people, especially in terms of if you ever listen to Lallana during the COVID seasons, and you had this sort of the no fan noise on the TV, he was just, you could hear him across Sussex. Like, he's got such a booming voice when he really makes his message clear. But so Lallana will come in. I wonder who will drop out. I mean, could it be Pascal Gross? It's hard to think that Caicedo and McAllister will be dropped.
I agree. I do think it might be Gross, because I think the way Gross was playing, assuming that he sets up very similar to what he did at Brentford, I think the way Gross was playing is probably the same kind of style that Lallana will fit in De Zerbi's system. I can't see McAllister getting dropped, and I certainly can't see Moises Caicedo getting dropped. But we'll wait and see. Like everyone else, we'll pure speculation, pure guesswork here. But I do think that it'll be like a Gross Lallana rotation there in the midfield for me personally.
Another thing that he talked about was most people knew that basically De Zerbi had tended to have four defenders at the back during his time at Sassuolo and Shakhtar Donetsk. He starts off with a 3, I think, at Brentford, and then it might have, I think, switched to a 4 with Solly March kind of bombing more forward, and then Estupinan and Veltman as the sort of full backs, or right and left back. So he was asked, "Will you switch to a back 4 permanently?" And he said, "Dunk, Webster, and Veltman are able to play as a back 3 or in a back 4. For each game, we decide the strategy that can win the game." Estupinan played well, which I did think he actually played pretty well. I think his crossing ability is fantastic. But he says he has to improve. He has to learn something more, but he needs confidence. He needs time to believe in himself more. And he says, "Today, I decide the tactical system." So I guess, he's probably doing the last bits of training at Lancing and trying, maybe tinkering about. But yes, so I guess, that will factor in. If it's a back 4, then how are they going to set up in midfield? Would that be the same sort of setup? I guess it's, it's kind of a knock-on effect on each one, and it's interesting to see what kind of pieces fit in where and which way. So I guess, I personally would, just in terms of how it's gone for Brighton over recent times and seasons, whatever, a back 3 with 2 wing backs has been more successful. But what do you reckon?
Yes, I agree on that. I think the wing back system definitely benefits us a lot. I think I do agree with what De Zerbi was saying about Estupinan. That there's elements of his game that are fantastic, but there are moments where he just needs to know that he can do it, basically. And I think there are times where he feels a bit restricted, and that's just based on what I've seen from him under Potter. So I see him, and when I watch him play, I get excited. I think he is an improvement to Cucurella, which is the main
Really?
thing. Yeah.
Oh, lay out that case, because that's a big claim.
It is a big case. It is a big case because Cucurella was superb for us last season, and I think what we're seeing now over at Chelsea is that Cucurella is very much a strong confidence player. And he was extremely confident at the Albion, and it just worked and it clicked, and he just left nothing off the pitch. But what we're seeing now with him over at Chelsea is he seems a bit more restrained. And I think the restrained version of Cucurella is less than that of Estupinan. And I think once we get Estupinan at those confident levels that we saw with Cucurella last season, I think we're going to be thinking, yeah, we've done a bit of great business here. But I think that's now the task of the man management of De Zerbi. I think under Potter we would have seen it by now, but obviously Potter's gone. That's it. It's now down to De Zerbi, and I think he's a fantastic manager to get that to happen. When you look at his record over at Sassuolo and the plays that he managed to really boost in terms of confidence and bring out consistent displays week in, week out, and Sassuolo playing with next to no budget in comparison to others in that league and finishing in the top 8, top 7. We're talking about someone who knows how to bring the best out of players, and I think that we are. I think we are going to see Estupinan perform at a higher level than Cucurella did.
So basically, is there going to be a club that bids 70 million for Estupinan in next summer?
I mean, I think that's a bit different because I think when we look at clubs at the moment, the people that will be willing to spend 70 million pounds, I don't think they'll be looking at us again. I don't think next summer anyway.
It's I was kind of joking. Don't worry.
I know you are. But I think I need to make that very clear to listeners. Like I don't think that's going to happen again. If you look at the top 6, I think we look at Cucurella. Is he really showing that much? Is he showing that big return on investment in the same way
I,
that Ben White has
no.
at Arsenal? I think it might take
It's
him a
still early.
season.
It's still very early days, I think.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Exactly.
he obviously hasn't had the instant impact that he did at Brighton. And not just segueing on to another player at Brighton, Dennis Undav. So really not been
The
given.
curious case of Dennis Undav.
He's really not been given much game time. He still waits his sort of first Premier League start. Obviously, he's come off the bench a few times. I don't think he did a great deal against Brentford, but I think there was maybe a few underpar performances as well, so that's not a slight against him. But he spoke to the club. Some quotes up on the website today, basically talking about settling in and that sort of thing. But to sort of stick to specifically Brighton, he says, I'm working hard in training and I'm in good condition. When I get my chances in the team, I need to be ready. The Premier League is tough, but I'm feeling strong and I'm ready to help my teammates whenever I'm needed. I wonder at what point, if Welbeck if he has a bad game or his kind of, his link-up players may be lacking, at what point is Undav going to be given a starting chance? What do you reckon?
I mean, I heard that quote, but what I really heard in translation was, give me minutes, give me a start me, please, I beg. Because if I was...
I didn't know you spoke German.
If I was Undav, I would be fuming. There's a striker who's ahead of me who hasn't scored a goal yet. And I've been brought in to help out with the striker problem that we have at the Albion. And yet I'm still second best to someone who hasn't hit the target this season. So yeah, I'll be telling De Zerbi, start me. I'm ready. I want to do it. There's no point in there's no point in us putting our trust in Wells if all he can do is supply and hold up play. And if he's not going to hold, if when Undav can do that, and he could potentially give us that extra dynamic of scoring goals. He had a fantastic record over at Royal USG. So it'll be, I think De Zerbi's got nothing to lose here. I think we should probably look at starting him. But at the same time, Welbeck's such a good player when it comes to linking up play. I suppose again it fits in what De Zerbi's going to set up, but I do think that we need to bring in Undav in sooner rather than later, because we've got this time next month the World Cup starts, and Undav is still be chasing minutes if what he's experienced is going to be consistent up until mid-November, and I'll be frustrated as well.
Yeah, I mean it's a good point about the World Cup thing. They've only got, I think, 6 maybe games until that break comes along. And yeah, if he's literally just scratching around for the odd minutes, I mean, yeah, how's he gonna, unless there's, he absolutely wows in kind of training and that block, and, so maybe some friendlies before they resume the games, I think, on Boxing Day. But yeah, it's a big old gap. But the problem is that obviously the point you make about, I would be frustrated for sure. But I mean, when he's actually come on, I can't really remember a game that he's played that well in. I mean, I didn't even think he was that great against Forest Green Rovers when he scored in that game. It was a very good finish, but I thought he looked a bit sluggish, seemed a bit off the pace. So I don't think there's actually...
there's a case there. There isn't a case, is there, from what we see in the minutes?
Maybe there is a case, but not a really strong case. Like, I'm knocking on the door saying that, and that's a bit of a problem. So, but I do think he does. I think it's an interesting one. Just one more thing to add on the sort of striker situation. So De Zerbi was asked about the fact that in the last 2 games against Tottenham and Brentford, obviously the 1-0 and 2-0 defeats, Brighton have had, I think, 35 shots, but no goals. Sorry to bring that up. Um,
Oh, we're champions of XG again.
yeah, but so yes, so he was basically asked about the kind of how do you the classic thing of how do you score goals after all those missing those chances. So he said, "I'm happy about my strikers. I don't want to speak about a striker not scoring. I think there are 11 players who have to attack and have to defend. We win and we lose because of everybody." And then adds, "We are sorry because in the 3 games we've only got a point and that's not right." So I guess he probably will see it maybe a little bit like what Graham Potter said in the past, that there's a collective responsibility amongst the whole team to chip in with goals. But I guess what is different from what he had at Sassuolo was he had a couple of strikers who he could rely on for that to really score the goals. I think there's Francesco Caputo scored, I think 20 goals in the 1920 season. And then Berardi, he scored, I think it was a similar amount, but sort of maybe not quite as much, but over a longer period of time, he was sort of 10 to 15 goals. So that's where they sort of that big chunk of goals came from. Brighton might not have that. Evidence-wise, they haven't had that. So I guess that says something that he probably might like to have. And it's an interesting one. Come January, would he go, give me a, not the 20-goal striker that obviously got parodied quite a lot, but at least a 10-goal striker or something like that.
We need to get answers, and he needs to. If he gets a chance, he definitely needs to take it. That's for sure. Just on the side note, just going back to your Forest Green Rovers comment as well. Yeah, he didn't play well, but I don't mind that because he scored.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're, for me, when you have those moments, if you're that type of player like Undav is, and you haven't had a great overall game, but you contributed to the win with a goal, I'm happy. I'll forgive it so long as you address those issues. But ultimately, you're there to score goals. I want you scoring goals. So it's a bit of a frustrating one. Let's go straight into the Forest game. I think. What are your thoughts before we go and chat to Sarah Clapson over at Nottingham Live? What are your quick thoughts going ahead to Forest?
Brighton really need to win this one. I think if you really want to, obviously the Liverpool game was a fantastic start and excitement on thinking, wow, what this can produce under Roberto De Zerbi. But this is a great example of it's bottom of the team. There's great opportunities to pick up 3 points. De Zerbi did say this is always a dangerous fixture because you're expected to win, against the basement team. But yeah, Forest, and we'll talk about it, Sarah, but 20 odd signings. It's hard for them to see like they've properly gelled. They've really collapsed in some games. They have to win this one, and I think I think there's a lot of positive thoughts about De Zerbi, but I think a home win is a must. What about you?
I completely agree. I do think that Amex under the lights, I think it just adds to a more for an intense atmosphere at the game. Forest will be chasing something. I can't see Cooper holding back at the Amex. I think he'll want to go and try and go back to his more attacking approach and just try and get an away win, snatch that away win, because he'll probably look at De Zerbi's recent record and think these ads are there for the taking. Whereas we look at it and I think we are closely, surely and must be getting there again with the winning.
Yeah, we just need that spark.
We just need that spark. Yeah. And I think the moment that happens, that ball is going to start rolling and it will snowball out of control once again. And I think that we're going to be
to the Premier League title.
A man can dream. Delusional, but we can dream. But I think that we are so close there. And I think if we can get a real strong win at home as well, and just watch how De Zerbi reacts at full time, I think that's when we're going to be getting that. Yes, that's the momentum we need. That is exactly what we need. from a fan's perspective, from a coaching perspective, and from a playing perspective. That is exactly what we need. I don't want to say it because it's October, but it does feel like kind of like a must-win match, almost. That's how I feel about it. Well, we've got City at the weekend, an away trip to City,
and then Chelsea,
and then Chelsea. Yeah, fantastic. So I think that'll be a great game. So I think that in terms of trying to maximise opportunities for wins, Forest has to be one of them. Has to be.
Yeah, I think what. So you think, because we've seen it before so many times, teams kind of just say, put 10 men behind the ball, come and break us down, and we'll hit you on the counter. But so you think Cooper will actually just take Brighton on instead of going for that approach?
Yeah, I think he'll take them on. I think if he looks at what the options he has in attack, I think he'll go, right, there's the three behind the striker. I want you to, when you get the ball, I want you to drive, I want you to carry it, and I want you to do what you can do in the final third. Get it to the final third and do what you do best.
Could be maybe a high-scoring game, potentially.
Potentially.
They do that.
I think it's going to be end-to-end, for sure. I think there's going to be plenty of chances. I just hope that we maintain what we've got, and that is control on the ball, control the approach. But ultimately, we need to find the finish to get these 3 points.
Amen to
that. But look, we'll move on now. We are joined by Sarah Clapson over at Nottinghamshire Live, who covers Forest, who will give us far more insight on all things from the visitors. Of course, and joining us is Sarah Clapson over at Nottinghamshire Live. Sarah, how you doing?
Good, thank you. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I suppose that we might as well just go straight into it and go, what on earth is happening at Forest?
How long have you got? How long is this podcast?
4 hours.
Even that's not enough. Yeah, it's been some start to the season, on and off the pitch, really. It's been a mix of everything, all sorts going on. Results haven't been great, the last few games particularly. I think there was a spell, the first few games, there was a spell I thought it's been okay. It's been a decent start up until maybe the Bournemouth and Fulham games, where they just capitulated in the second halves of those. And they've never really got going again since then. We've had little spells of what they can do, and they've shown glimpses of what they're capable of. But I think that the big issue that Steve Cooper's got at the minute is finding his best team, because of all the changes that happened in the summer and the new players that come in. They're still very much trying to gel and still trying to set up some kind of connections on the pitch and get used to each other. And that's really shown in performances and inevitably in results, I guess. And they find themselves in the position they're in now, which is not a good one.
Yeah, lots of really interesting points there. One thing I wanted to just ask out of curiosity was, I believe it's 22 signings that Nottingham Forest made. At what point did kind of the fans kind of go, are we going to stop signing players? At what point did it sort of switch from this is great to what are we doing? And yeah.
I think there was always an acceptance that Forest needed to sign a lot. They did, because they lost so many in the summer, and a lot of the players that were still under contract hadn't really been involved in the first team in the Championship, so they weren't going to be involved in the Premier League. So they needed to make changes. 22 is a lot. I don't think I certainly didn't expect that many. I don't think many fans would have done. I think there's a lot of big names in there. There was a lot of statement signings. Your Jesse Lingard, your Nico Williams, your Morgan Gibbs-White, Remo Freuler, Renan Lodi. There's some really good players in there. And I think initially there was maybe a bit of an excitement about, isn't this great? Look, we're signing all these amazing players and they've come with great CVs and it sounds like they're going to be brilliant. But I guess the reality then kicks in that actually you've got to make all these players gel and you've got to make them fit together and find out how it all works and who is best suited to what role and where. And I guess really that only starts when you play games and you realise actually this is going to take a little while on the pitch. So I think there was the excitement there, definitely amongst fans that, they're making all these great signings and making a lot of good signings, but then perhaps it becomes a bit, actually, this is going to be a real challenge. And the managers acknowledge that it's a real challenge.
So another thing I want to talk about is there's been so much speculation concerning Forest from start to finish this season and even beyond that. And one of the big stories that broke out, supposedly Steve Cooper was going to lose his job, and then the exact opposite happened. Could you possibly shed some light on, again, what on earth was going on?
Yeah, I wish we knew all the ins and outs, because it would have been great to be a fly on the wall at times, I'm sure, in the boardroom and inside the club. But yeah, after the Leicester game, when they lost 4-0, his job was very much on the line. The following morning, I don't think anybody would have been surprised if he'd been sacked and if he'd lost his job, because there'd been rumblings before that as well. It wasn't just the Leicester game that did it. It looked like that was going to be the kind of straw that broke the camel's back. But before that, the club had been kind of maybe considering it a little bit. But then to go in the complete opposite direction and announce that he got a new contract, again, nobody saw that coming at all. It was a real surprise. Usually when you're on a losing run like Forest were on, and the position they were in the table, it only goes one way. You very rarely get a club. You might get the dreaded vote of confidence, but you very rarely get a club that go, oh, here's a new contract. Let's get this signed and done. So it was kind of I guess a nice surprise, because the manager still has the backing of the fans. He's still really got them on their side, and he's still got the players on his side as well. You can see that they're all trying for him. They're all playing for him still. It's just that it's not worked. So it was kind of nice that the club actually, they went about it in a bit of a roundabout way, and they were looking at other names, but eventually they got to the right decision and thought, well, let's support him. Let's get behind him. Let's give him our backing. I guess we all know the reality that football is still a results business, and he is still under pressure to get results, regardless of the new contract. And we all know how football works, that you might have put pen to paper, but a few weeks down the line, if you're not winning, your position's under threat again. It did offer a nice boost, I think, at the time, albeit it quickly disappeared when performances didn't quite live up to expectations against Wolves. It's a little bit of stability in a mad few weeks, which then didn't last long, but it was nice for a little while at least.
Yeah, with I believe, is it the owner's Evangelos Marinakis? Is that how you
Yeah,
pronounce it?
yeah, that's correct.
So is with, I guess, maybe the results changing very quickly, and is it like conceivable that potentially, if results don't go their way and we get to the World Cup in a month or so time, that Cooper could be out of the job, and then another manager's got to deal with a million players?
Yeah, I think at this point nobody would be surprised at anything that happens at Forest this season. The owner has shown before, both at Forest and with Olympiacos, who he also owns, that he doesn't always have great patience in managers. He's a very ambitious man. He's spent a lot of money in the summer. He's put a lot of money into the club since he bought it. Being bottom of the Premier League table wouldn't be what he has in mind. I think maybe before the season started, there was maybe an expectation or a hope, whether it was right or wrong, that Forest would be higher up the division than what they are and doing better than what they are. That's certainly what the owner would like. I guess you have to have a little bit of perspective in that. But again, it's his money. He spent all that money. He wants results. He wants to be in a different place. So absolutely, if results don't improve, that World Cup break is looking like a bit of a difficult one, I guess, in a few senses. Not just for Forest, but a lot of clubs. I'm sure there'll be others that are getting to that point and thinking, well, we'll see how these next few games go, and then we've got that big block of time where if we want to make a change, that's looking like a good time to do it. And Forest will be no different, I suspect, in that sense. So, yeah, he is under pressure to improve. He is under pressure to get results, regardless of the new contract. So they've got a tough run before then. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
And obviously Brighton feature in that run as well. What can Albion fans expect to see from Steve Cooper's side? How does he particularly set his side up?
In general, he likes to play good attacking football. In the last couple of games, though, he's changed a little bit. He's gone a bit more defensive. I think against Aston Villa, he kind of made the point that it was a needs must. They needed to set up the way that they did and make sure they were more solid defensively because they'd shipped so many goals. They needed to tighten up. They needed to stop the losing run. And they kind of did it in a way that was against his philosophy, against his style. It was more just about getting a result. And they carried that over really to Wolves. They were very defensive again. They've got so many good attacking players in the side. They haven't managed to get the best out of them yet. But more than anything, they needed to tighten up at the back. They've done that. Now it's about finding the right balance. And that's the tricky bit. Steve Cooper hasn't quite got that right in the last few games. They have been more compact, more defensively sound. But attacking wise, they haven't offered a lot. On Saturday against Wolves, they really didn't do well with the ball. They didn't use it well. They didn't create many chances, and they never really looked like having a go up until the point when they went 1-0 down, and then they got a penalty, and they could have got something in the end, but it wasn't the best version of themselves, and the managers acknowledged that. So it's going to be interesting, really, to see how they do set up, I think, on Tuesday night, because a lot of fans want them to have a go. I think they kind of think if you're in this position, at least have a go. If you're going to lose, do it fighting. At least try. At least try to have a go at the opposition. I can kind of see the manager's point that, look, we've shipped so many goals. We do need to make sure we're a bit more defensively sound. But now it's about making sure they have both sides of it. That's his ideal, but getting to that point is proving tricky, I think.
Obviously, you spoke. Well, yeah, you were at the press conference today with Steve Cooper. Can you just give us an update on Nottingham Forest team news, and then also just in your opinion, maybe the danger men Nottingham Forest have that Brighton should be wary of?
Yeah, they've got a few doubts for Tuesday night. They've got a couple of players that are pretty much ruled out in Moussa Niakate and Omar Richards. They're kind of long-term injury victims. They've got a few where there's a question mark whether they might be available. Lewis O'Brien missed out on Saturday through illness. He was sick with a bug, and it's whether he kind of gets over that fully, I think, whether he'll be available. And then there's a couple of others where they picked up a bit of a knock. They didn't feature on Saturday. It's whether they are fit enough really for Tuesday night. Serge Aurier and Renan Lodi. So there's question marks over them. Other than that, I don't think we'll see too many changes. I guess it kind of depends because they play Liverpool at the weekend and it's a 3-game week. So it might be that he does look to freshen things up a little bit and give a few players a rest with Saturday in mind, and with it being a long trip and a quick turnaround from Saturday. He doesn't tend to make too many changes week to week. I think a big thing will be we trying to get a settled side, which is something that Forest haven't had yet. I don't think he's named the same 11 week to week because he is still trying to figure out what his best team is. So I think we'll see a few changes, but maybe not too many. Danger men, Morgan Gibbs-White has done pretty well since he come in the summer. He's looked quite lively. He's looked like he's offered something going forward. I don't think we've seen the best of him quite yet. Same with Jesse Lingard and Brennan Johnson and the strikers, really, attacking wise. Forest are still yet to really get going. But if anybody's going to create something at the minute, I think Gibbs-White is probably going to be the man to do it. He's looked the most dangerous and the most threatening.
I suppose straight after that, we've got to ask, what is your prediction for the match at the Amex?
Oh, you put me on the spot there. I'd like to think Forest will be able to get something out of it, because they really want to make up for a poor performance at Wolves. So they've got a bit of determination, a bit of hopefully fire in their belly because of that. They're under no illusions. It's going to be tough. I would suspect it's going to be quite a close game. Well, I hope it's going to be quite a close game for Forest. I'll go 1-1.
1-1. Oh, point. Big point there.
Yeah, it would be a big point.
Well, maybe. Richie, what are you going for?
2-1 Brighton home win.
Yeah, I'm going for the same as well.
As you can say, I'm not convinced in my own prediction.
I'm going to.
That makes 3 of us.
Yeah, it's so hard when we make these predictions. I was quite confident going ahead with Potter's, but now with under De Zerbi, we're kind of like they're still trying to work out his style of play, and we're still trying to get an understanding of it as well as fans. So it'll be interesting to see what it's like under the lights at the Amex. But Sarah, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and enjoy the match.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.